How to make your first million. We're going to talk about money. The one thing millionaires do that I guarantee you don't do. First off, I made my first million back in the 70s. That was a long time ago, back in the 70s. And what does make your first million mean? First off, most people get this all wrong. They don't even have a clear understanding of what a million is. First off, becoming a millionaire simply means you have a net worth of $1 million, which means if you paid off all of your bills and all of your debts, like you paid off your car, you paid off your house, you paid off all of your debts, you paid off your credit cards, you paid off all of your debts, and you sold all of your assets, you sold your house, you sold your car, you sold your jewelry. Oh, you don't have any jewelry, but you sold your Rolex watch. Oh, you don't have a Rolex, but let's assume you did. So if you sell everything that you have and you pay off all of your debt, what's left? And if it's $1 million, you're a millionaire. Well, today a millionaire means nothing. When I made $1 million back in the 70s, times it by 10, it's about 10 million today. But people say, I want to make my first million. And most people don't even understand what that means. Again, is it net worth or is it my company generated $1 million in sales? I made my first million. No, you didn't make it because it wasn't profit. Your company generated $1 million in sales, but you had $2 million in expenses. So you actually lost $1 million. So making $1 million, that's not what you're looking for. Looking for is net profit of $1 million. $1 million cash in the bank, but that's not even good because you still owe money on your house, you still owe money on your car, you still owe money on your credit cards. So everything's paid off. You have no mortgage, you have no car payment because you bought it for cash. You don't have any credit card debt, you have no debt whatsoever, you have no outstanding loans, and you have $1 million cash in the bank or $1 million in Amazon stock or something. That's $1 million. So making $1 million, making your first million. Making your first million. The one thing that millionaires do that you don't do, and that's really a misnomer, it's the one thing that people did before they were a millionaire that helped them become a millionaire that you're not doing now. So if you don't have $1 million cash in the bank, maybe in your 401k, your IRA account, your investment account or whatever, if you don't have $1 million minimum, I have to tell you, and look, most people don't. But if you don't, you're in serious financial difficulty. You're doing a lot of things wrong. It is easier today to make money than ever before in history. When I made $1 million, and when I say I made $1 million, I had $1 million cash in the bank and I didn't have a single bill, a single debt. Way over $1 million. That was in the 70s when I made my first million, when I had that much cash in the bank. And at certain points throughout my career, the number of millions that were in the bank with no debt and everything paid off, varied from time to time, but it was staggering. It's easy to make money when you know how. So what is the one thing that people who made $1 million, put $1 million cash in the bank, what's that one thing that they did that I guarantee you are not doing? And here's what it is. It is called work. They worked 12 to 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week on making money. They had an obsession with making money. That's all they thought about. They had singular focus. They had singleness of purpose. And I guarantee you don't do that because you want to live a balanced life. Well, I'm sorry, but people who succeed in life don't live a balanced life. It is a fantasy. It is a myth. If you say, I want to live a balanced life and make millions, welcome to Fantasy Island. It just doesn't. Well, I read this book and it talked about this person who made all this money. Yeah, it's a myth, isn't it? It's a fantasy book. It's a book of fiction, isn't it? It's about some made-up character that the author created, and he created a lie. If it was true, how come he couldn't just tell you the story of Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or anybody who became incredibly successful? He can't, because when you look at those people, it doesn't fit his fantasy model that you just relax and let the universe just manifest everything for you in your life. And you don't have to just, work so hard because you want to have a balance in your life. No, nobody has a balanced life in the beginning. When you look at professional sports athletes, when you look at professional musicians that are superstars today, and you ask them, hey, for the first 2 or 3 years, did you live a balanced life? Did you meditate? Did you then do yoga and then go for walks and take vacations and go on dates with your spouse and take the weekends off with the kids? They go, what are you, insane? I never saw my kids. I never saw my spouse. I was working 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. It was an obsession. And if it was golf, all I did was golf. I didn't watch TV. I wasn't involved in music. I wasn't trying to learn something else. I was focused on that. I had a magnificent obsession. That's all I focused on. Singleness of purpose. Successful people understand this. See, there's some axioms, and it's in my book, Nuggets of Gold, for example. Nuggets of gold, these nuggets of gold are filled with the truth. And one of them is successful people are always too busy doing what the other guys are still talking about. Now, think about that. You're talking, not doing. They are doing. And we don't look at millionaires or successful people and say, what are they doing now? And I want to replicate that. I want to duplicate that. I want to mimic or model that. Nine. Niet. Nada. What you do is you say, here's a person who's incredibly successful. What did they do when they were starting off and they were flat broke? What did they do for those 2 or 3 years before they made money? On the way, on the journey to make money, what were they doing on that journey to make money? That's the real question. And now you see a difference. They were doing instead of talking. Successful people are always willing to do what the other guys are not willing to do, right? So what they were doing was something that was uncomfortable. They got out of their comfort zone. They were willing to do things that they didn't necessarily like, that most people ain't willing to do, but they were willing to do it. Another example is they were always willing to sacrifice. It's called delayed gratification. In other words, they gave up maybe something they loved. I remember I was with a fellow one time, and he had achieved the level of success. Some of you may remember the Cambridge diet back in the 70s. It was one of the first protein shakes, a liquid diet. It was a multi-level marketing company, kind of a predecessor to Herbalife, which Mark Hughes started, became a very successful multi-level marketing company. And this guy became very successful in that company and made several $1 million. And his wife actually was one of the top distributors in Mary Kay Cosmetics. So they were familiar with residual income and so forth. And he was doing very well. He was living in Punta Gorda, Florida. And he had a beautiful boat and a beautiful house, a beautiful wife, a beautiful life. He used to go to beautiful dinners. He liked wine and he loved fine dining. And he was a really jolly, wonderful, happy guy. And he had no bills and he had amazing amount of financial success. And he got very complacent. And I went down and talked to him and I said, listen, there's a business opportunity here. I'm launching this new business. The stock is selling for 50 cents. I think it can go up to 20 bucks or more. We're on NASDAQ. And I think you should get involved if it's something you can get fired up about. And he thought about it and he said to me, I got to become mentally broke. I have to come back to how I was when I was poor on the way to success, because I have to start doing the things and acting in the same way that I did when I was first starting off, even though I don't need to now. I have to become mentally broke again in order to make this work. Does that make sense? Are you paying attention? I said, okay, so what are you going to do? He says, well, you know, Kevin, I love golf. You also know I'm not very good at golf, but I golf almost every day, and I go on my boat almost every day. Those are my two favorite joys. I just love doing it. You know that. And I was at his house, and he says, I'm going to do this. He goes, and I have to get mentally broke, and I have to give up what I love, and that will drive and motivate me. So he went in and took his golf clubs, and he put it in a closet. He actually had a padlock, locked the closet, gave the key to his wife, and said, you do not give me this key for 1 year. I'm not golfing. Not golfing. He goes, now I am going to go on the boat. He said, but I'm going to give the key to my wife, and I say, I am only allowed to go on the boat 1 day a week. 1 day a week for a year. Fine. So he understood a concept called delayed gratification, which means putting off being gratified, enjoying the fruits of your labor for a period of time. It's temporary, so that you're focused in on what you're doing. This is the key. This is the one thing that people always did that people that are not successful don't do. They're obsessed with making money. They're obsessed with their mission, their purpose, their idea, their project. It gives them joy. They love the act of creating, and it's all they do. It's all they think about. They eat, drink, and sleep this obsession. They work on it, but it's not work to them. They absolutely love the journey because they understand the journey is actually the reward. They love the act of creating. As a matter of fact, they get upset when they have to go to sleep. And I know I was there, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you're working on it. And you think, I got a 6 o'clock meeting. I got to get some sleep. But then you look at people like Albert Einstein. Let's look at a very successful person who made huge amounts of money, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla. You look at some of the people like Stephen Jobs, co-founder of Apple, Elon Musk. And when you ask them in the beginning, how many hours did they sleep? They look at you and go, sleep? I took some naps. Thomas Edison was known never to go to bed. He would virtually nap for an hour or two in his workshop. Same thing with Einstein. They were so obsessed with working that only when their body was just like, I'm just need, and they passed out at their desk, then they woke up and they went back to work. See, this is something you're not willing to do, but this is the fact of the matter. This is what people did. The one thing that people who became incredibly successful did that you don't do. Now, maybe you don't have to be that fanatical about it, and here's the great reason why. Today, it's easier to make money than ever before, and I'm going to talk about that. So you don't have to even be that fanatical, and you can still make huge amounts of money. You are on your way to having your first $1 million in the bank and all of your bills paid. All right, now there's 3 major mind shifts or differences between people that make lots of money and people that are broke. This is the millionaire mindset. There's 3 of them. They are common in everyone who makes huge amounts of money. Very, very common. And they don't exist in people that don't have a lot of money. So here's the number 1 mindset. A broke person thinks that there's a limit to opportunity and a limit to the amount of money out there, that there's a finite resource of money. They think, I just don't have opportunities. I've missed the opportunities. There aren't any more opportunities. I wasn't at the right place at the right time. I missed that chance. I don't have money, and it takes money to make money. I can only make so much. There's this limiting belief around money that poor or broke people have. Rich people, on the other hand, understand this, that money is a renewable resource, which means if they lose all their money today, it's no problem. They can create more. Do you understand this? Do you think that you can create as much money as you want? You don't, do you? This is a mindset, and there's a way that you can actually flip that switch and get that mindset so it's on autopilot. That's really what wealthy people do. They have in their mind this mindset that money is a renewable resource. I can create as much as I want anytime I want. This floats into opportunity. And the opportunity goes kind of like this. Opportunities in life are like trains. There's always another one coming. There's not like this is the last opportunity that will ever present itself to you in this lifetime. No, there are an abundance of opportunities, tons of opportunities. There's huge amounts. And if you don't take advantage of this because of various conditions and circumstances that you can't, there'll be another one down the road. This is you can call it a belief, but it's really not belief. It's the confidence or knowingness that you can and will have tons of opportunities in this lifetime. You can't take advantage of every single one. Take advantage of the ones you want. Money is a renewable resource. You can create money. And I'll give you an example of this. Walt Disney. Walt Disney was a cartoonist, and he had a vision. He had a vision that he was going to create a cartoon character. And this cartoon character was going to become famous all around the world. And this cartoon character was going to make Walt Disney, that's his name, Walt Disney, was going to make him rich and famous. It was something that he was obsessed with. And he worked on all these different characters, and he came up with a character that he knew it was it. This was it. This is the character. I found it. I discovered it. I drew it out. I got the cartoon character that's going to be in movies. It's going to be everywhere, and it's going to make me rich and famous. Now, Walt Disney had some business partners in New York, a little unscrupulous. And in that business arrangement, everything that Walt Disney created was owned by this entity. And Walt Disney was a minority shareholder in this entity. Through some legal menangering and the terms of the contract, Walt was virtually fired, and the entity kept the cartoon character, which means Walt Disney no longer had ownership rights of this cartoon character that he knew was going to make him rich and famous. The other group did. Walt Disney had to go from New York to California, a completely busted man. He was distraught, downtrodden. They stole his cartoon character that was going to make him rich and famous. That cartoon character, by the way, was called Oswald the Rabbit. Did you ever hear Oswald the Rabbit? No. The people in New York tried to turn Oswald the Rabbit into this big success, and it flopped. Walt Disney broke. Had Oswald the Rabbit stolen from him, was in California, and after a year of just being broke and completely depressed, finally, and he said it in his autobiographies, he woke up one day and he said, wait a minute. Oswald the Rabbit didn't create Walt Disney. Walt Disney, created Oswald the Rabbit. And if I created Oswald the Rabbit, I can create another cartoon character. He said in virtually 30 minutes, he drew out a cartoon character today known as Mickey Mouse. Think about it. No one can take away your ability to create. Rich people's mindset, the millionaire mindset, the real, most important millionaire mindset is this. You think and you know and you have complete confidence in your own ability to create. You know that you have the ability to create money. You have confidence that you have the ability to create money anytime you need with the help of the universe. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but most wealthy people have some type of spiritual inclination. Some of them are actually religious. They actually get on their knees and pray, whether it's to Allah if they're Muslim, whether it's to Jesus if they're a Christian, whether it's to Hashem if they're Jewish, whether it's to one of the many gods if you're Hindu, whether it's Krishna or Ram or Hanuman or Ganesh or something, or Shiva. There's some spiritual connection, or if it's just the universe. Interestingly enough, in America, for example, most of the people were Christian, and therefore they look at the Old and New Testament. And there is a scripture in the Old Testament that both Jews and Christians basically attach themselves to when it comes to making money. And it says, remember, it is God or the universe or the infinite intelligence that gives you the power to create wealth. Think about that. This is why wealthy people have complete faith and confidence that they can create whatever they want, because they know it's just not them. They know that the universal intelligence, the universal consciousness, God, Allah, Hashem, whatever you want to call this gives you the power to create wealth. It's not just you. You're tapping into this infinite source of supply. You see, money is not your source of supply. The source of your supply is the infinite universe. That is the source. You can call it God. That's the source of your supply. And wealthy people know that in the ether, there is an infinite amount of money that can be manifested or turned into physical reality. This is what we are. We are creative beings, and we can create money. Not that we can, we actually do. That's how money manifests in people's life. They create it. And when you have this mindset, the universe will then present to you and have bubble up ideas about how to make money, business ideas. I was with a fellow in prison, and he had this mindset. He went through my course when I taught it in prison about how to get this mindset. And after he had this mindset changed, this millionaire mindset, by going through some specific techniques that I taught, he came to me, and it was another fellow there named Jeff Skilling. Jeff Skilling was with Enron. Some of you remember that. He really got a bad deal. He was a great guy, very super intelligent fellow. And this gentleman who went through my course came to me and Jeff and said, I have a business idea. Came to me. See, when you have the millionaire mindset, now you have ideas of what you can get obsessed with, what business plan, what method of making money. It'll spring up. It'll present itself. He goes, I got an idea. What do you guys think about it? I said, what is it? And he had it all drawn out. He did all this work on it. I mean, he was staying up all night long working on this. And it was this idea of something that would hold a cell phone in a car. He says, people don't know where to put their cell phones when they're in the car. And, if there was a holder that they could put it, that would be really good. So the one thing that's in every car is a cup holder. So I have this invention where you can have a little device that looks like a cup, and it goes in the cup holder, and then there's something that sticks up where you can attach and put in the cell phone. So the cell phone is on this little device, which goes into the cup holder, and the cup holder can be adjusted depending on what size the cup holder is. So no matter what car you have, no matter what size cup holder, my little device, I figured out the mechanics of it, will fit in there, and you can attach your phone, and it'll be a cell phone cup holder. And Jeff Skilling and I looked at this and said, well, what do you think, Jeff? I think that's a pretty good idea. I think it's a pretty good idea too. Well, it was such a good idea that when he thought about it, he actually put that energy into the ether. I don't know if you understand how that works, but that's how it works. And a couple years later, somebody else came up with that same idea called weather tech. And it was called the cup phone. And it sold, I don't know, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. This guy didn't make a penny. It was his idea. Didn't make a penny. And when I talked to him, I said, you must be a little bit upset or sad that you missed, and I was teasing, I was seeing where he was at mentally, that you missed that opportunity. Maybe your one chance in a lifetime to become a multimillionaire. And he goes, oh, no. If I could create the cup holder, I can create another invention. See, he understands, just like Walt Disney did, that you are a creative force. Get the millionaire mindset. If you don't have the millionaire mindset, that money is a renewable resource and that you can create, and it is God, the universe, which is the source of your supply that gives you the power to get right. If you don't have that mindset, then you're going to have a struggle making your first million and making any large amounts of money. All right, so let me tell you what's keeping you poor. The number one thing that's keeping you poor, and there's a lot of things that are keeping you poor, and I'm going to give you a bunch of them. But what's the number one thing that's keeping you poor? Any ideas? What do you think? What do you think? Can't hear you. What do you think? The number one thing that's keeping you poor. Trey, do you have any idea what the number one thing is? John, do you have any idea? No, you're shaking it. No idea. The number one thing, and there are many things that are keeping you poor, but the number one thing, you would never, I guarantee you, no one's come up with this. The number one thing that's keeping you poor is your mouth. What you say. You see, what you say is what you get. Your tongue is a creative force. Words have power, more power than you could ever imagine. There was a book written by Shad Helmstetter called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. There was another book called What You Say Is What You Get. From a Christian perspective, it was based on the biblical principles and what it says in the Bible about that subject. And another one called The Tongue, a Creative Force. Good books. Those are very Christian-oriented books, and Chad's book is pretty good as well. And I'm just going to clarify this. It's very important. Every word that comes out of your mouth has 100 to 1,000 times more power than a thought. Because when you speak, the word vibrates into the universe. See, when you think, you're sending out a vibration only through your mind. But when you speak, you have to have the thought as well. So when you speak, not only are you having a thought come from your mind, but the vibration is coming out of your mouth into the physical universe. It's vibrating molecules. It has creative force. What you say is what you get. You have to speak things into existence. There was a word that magicians used to use, and I did some magic when I was a kid, and that word was called abracadabra. And the way it worked was, I'd come on stage, I'd have my top hat, I'd pull my top hat out, and I would say, abracadabra, I now pull a rabbit out of my hat. And I pull the rabbit out of the hat. Or there'd be a lady lying on the table, and I go, abracadabra, I now make the woman float. I would say the word abracadabra first. And I started researching. I said, where'd that come from? It's actually a Persian word, or that's the origins. And it means, the translation means, I now create with my words. So let me say that again, the magic things, changing abracadabra to I now create with my words. So watch. I come on stage, I have my top hat, I pull my top hat out, and I say, I now create with my words. I pull a rabbit out of my hat. You follow me? In other words, I'm putting out the intention that I'm creating with my words, and then I speak what I want to happen, and it happens. I speak it into existence. Or the lady's lying on the table, and I go, I now create with my words. Rise, rise, rise. And the woman rises. Now, it was a magic trick. I wasn't creating with my words, doing the magic tricks, and no magician does. But the point is, that's where it comes from. And it comes from real energy magicians that were actually creating with their words. So they would say, I now create with my words, telling the universe what I'm going to speak now is going to manifest, heal, or whatever. And they would manifest with their words, creating with their words. And now this is a spiritual principle, and I can give you dozens of texts. I'll just give you one famous one, because you might be familiar with it if you come from a Christian perspective. And that is, in the Bible, in several of the Gospels, there's this story. And the story is Jesus and his apostles are walking down, they're going to some town, and it says that Jesus is hungry. He's hungry, and he sees a fig tree kind of in the distance. So he says, hey, there's a fig tree. Let's go over to that fig tree. So they walk over to the fig tree, but it says there were no figs on the tree. There were no figs. So they walked there and there was nothing to eat. And it says Jesus cursed the fig tree, and the apostles heard him, which means he spoke it out loud. They went on to their next town to do their show. And then on the way back, it says they saw the fig tree. 2 days later, the fig tree had withered and was dead. And they were amazed. They said, Master, the fig tree that you cursed, that you spoke out loud and cursed, has died. And then Jesus gives them a teaching. And he says, if you say to this mountain, be cast out and thrown into the sea, if you believe that what you say will happen, you will get whatever you say. It says it right there, Mark 11:24. I mean, it's right there. And it's also in some other ones. Speak out loud, believing in your heart that what you say is going to happen, and it will. There's one other caveat, and that one other caveat is you have to have no grudges against anyone else. And it says, and if you have any annoyance with somebody, forgive them first. You have to have that forgiveness to allow the power of your voice to actually have pure manifesting ability. The point is, you speak things without thinking. So think about what you say. I'm so dumb. Boom. You just spoke that into existence. Things don't work out for me. You just spoke that into existence. I miss all the opportunities. You just spoke that into existence. Think about what you say. You don't even listen to your words. If you listen to your words, you're the most negative person on the planet, and you don't even realize it. You criticize, you condemn, you judge, you beat yourself up constantly. Let me tell you what rich people do. Rich people give themselves pep talks when no one's around. When they're by themselves, they say things like, I'm a winner. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I am going to win. I'm going to make this happen. They don't say that in front of others. They say it to themselves. They give themselves a verbal out loud pep talk. They speak into existence what they want. You don't. You basically berate yourself with your words, the words that you speak, the ones that people can hear or you could hear. The other reason why spoken words are so powerful and significant is this. Have you ever heard your voice on a recording? Maybe you recorded something on your phone and then played it back and you hear your voice. And isn't it true that when you hear your voice on a recording, it doesn't sound like you at all? You're thinking, that does not sound like me. That's not my voice. I speak all the time. I know what it sounds like, and it doesn't sound like that. Well, guess what? That's exactly what everybody else hears. That is your voice. The question is, why does it sound different when you hear it on a recording versus when you speak yourself? The answer is, when you hear it on a recording, the sound comes up and vibrates through the air, through the atmosphere, and it hits your eardrum. 100% of the sound is vibrating and hitting your eardrum, and that's what you hear. When you speak, your vocal cords vibrate. Sound comes out through the mouth, and you hear it in your ear. But 2/3 of the sound travels through bone directly into your brain. So you're actually hearing the vibrations through bone. Your whole head, throat is vibrating. Your whole brain is vibrating, not just your eardrum. Are you paying attention? Do you realize that when you speak, your whole brain vibrates? When you just listen, only your eardrum vibrates. And when you just think a thought, nothing vibrates. Which do you think is more powerful? The most powerful is the spoken word. When you say something, we're going to win. This is why you look at professional athletes, they're always giving themselves a pep talk. They're speaking out loud. They do it maybe instinctively, not even knowing what's really the science behind it. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at the neural pathways that get established in the brain when you speak things, it is dramatically different than if you just think it. Watch your words. Negative or positive? So the one thing that rich people do, and there's a lot more, I'm not going to cover them all today, and I'll give you one more, just as a little. Rich people spend money on things that go up in value, called appreciating assets. Poor people spend money on things that go down in value, depreciating assets. A rich person will buy a piece of art if they have some extra money, knowing that the art will probably go up in value. A poor person will buy a sofa or a TV, something that goes down in value. Make sense? A rich person will buy a Rolex watch, knowing that that will probably hold its value or appreciate, or some diamond or gold jewelry, knowing that the price of gold and the jewelry could go up in value. A poor person will spend money on something that goes down in value, something that's going to depreciate. They'll buy a car, they'll buy a boat, they'll buy something. They blow their money frivolously. But let's go back to the number one thing, which is the words. What you say is what you get. The tongue is a creative force. What do you say when you talk to yourself? Do you call yourself names, or do you give yourself a pep talk? Wealthy people give people pep talks. If you do these things, you can be on your way to putting $1 million cash in the bank. And I have to tell you, making money today is easier than ever before in history. It's not harder, it's easier. With the internet, with AI, with Amazon, and all the different ways you can market and sell products and services online, it is easier to make money than ever before. You can make more money faster today than ever before in history. And you don't need a lot of money to get started. This is unprecedented. Why aren't more people making money? Because wealthy people always do something that broke people do, and that is wealthy people show initiative. Broke people don't. And today, the research has proven that the number of people that have and show initiative is lower than any time in history that we know of. It's lower. And there's a lot of reasons why. Fluoride in the water is one of them. Soy is another, because it lowers testosterone levels. People today just don't have the initiative that they had 30, 40, 50 years ago. Think about it. Do these things and you are on your way to making your fortune. You can do it. You have greatness within you. Remember, you were born to win. You were engineered for success. You were designed for accomplishment, and you were endowed with the seeds of greatness. Thanks for watching. If you're ready to access the secrets and insider strategies that I learned that can change everything for you, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Every Wednesday at 9 o'clock Central, we upload a brand new and hopefully thought-provoking show. The mission? The goal? What's in it for you? Well, I want to give you the knowledge and know-how to break free and unlock limitless potential in every area of your life. If you have questions or comments, make sure you put them in the comments section. I read every single comment. Also, make sure you share these videos with friends or family members to help them create the life that they want. And be smart. Follow me on all social media platforms for new and different content that I put up every single day.